Happy Kadayawan Dabawenyos, magandang gabi Pilipinas. Welcome po sa inyong paboritong programa. Ako po si Harvey Lanticse.
Mabuhay ug madayaw. Welcome to another episode. My name is Hanna Piccio. Kini ang Basta Dabawenyo.
Pilipinas, isang episode na naman po na makakasama nyo kami to discuss issues concerning the city and our country today. And makakasama pa din po natin ang Mayor ng Davao City, Mayor Baste, Duterte.
May adlaw sa tanan.
Mayor, we have a very special guest tonight. Mayor, nagbabalik at sasamahan tayo muli ngayong gabi to help us discuss, to give her point of view on issues natin ngayon sa ating bansa. Ang atong kauban, higala gikan sa Cebu, Mandaue, Atty. Regal Oliva.
Maayong gabi, Happy Kadayawan Festival sa tanan mga Dabawenyos, and good evening to everyone who are always watching the podcast of Mayor Baste.
Welcome to the show, Attorney.
Of course,
This is your second
it's
time.
an honor always.
Second time na.
Masaya si Hanna, Attorney, na makasama ka.
Personally.
Yeah, I'm so sad because the first time you weren't with us.
Really?
And I'm very happy. I'm very happy
as well. It's an honor to sit right next to you.
It's a very beautiful
pleasure.
episode, beautiful faces tonight po makakasama nyo. But we have a lot of hot issues, Mayor Attorney Regal, na pag-uusapan ngayon, especially itong impeachment case, nangyayari sa House of Representatives and sa Senate. And tonight, Attorney, we would like to hear your point of view.
Okay.
Help us make our followers understand also what's really happening and what's the core discussions on this topic. Una na nga dyan, Mayor Attorney Regal, diretso na tayo. Itong nangyari sa Senate na pagboto sa impeachment case ni Vice President Sara. But before that, para lang i-refresh natin ang timeline talaga at maintindihan natin ng ating mga kababayan. On July 25, the Supreme Court gave their decision on the petition doon sa impeachment case nga na ni VP Sara, questioning its constitutionality, filed by Dabawenyo lawyers led by Attorney Torion. And then the Supreme Court, they released their decision saying that indeed it was unconstitutional because of the one-bar rule.
Exactly.
I think 13 justices voted to declare it unanimously voted to say that it's unconstitutional. Attorney Regal, before we go into the Senate votes last week, can you help us explain lang yung naging desisyon ng Supreme Court? Ano ba yung sinasabing one-bar rule at paano nag-arrive na naging basis na tawaging unconstitutional yung final na impeachment?
Let's be very clear. The decision of the Supreme Court did not acquit the Vice President from any of the other articles of impeachment. The ones that they decided on is only when was the impeachment complaint filed. And that was very crucial because they say the one-bar rule for the past years and decades, what we understood is that ang one-bar rule happens to be a calendar year. So for example, gifile siya in 2024, after 2024, fresh na by 2025. That's what the understanding of everyone is. But the Supreme Court said, hindi. One-bar rule starts when the very first impeachment complaint was filed. Okay, so when was it filed? December of 2024. And then there were 3 complaints filed on that same month. And the 4th complaint was filed on February 5, 2025. That is just a matter of 2 months or 3 months. Now, the Supreme Court said, bakit hindi nyo to inaksyonan ang tatlo? First 3. Bakit dumiretso kayo sa 4th? And that is why we went back to the case of Estrada, where they said, when is it really ang impeachment complaint will say nga may action na talaga. Kailan ba yun talaga? And previous jurisprudence said when you refer that complaint to the department to the Committee on Justice. Did the Congress do that? No. They did not. But the Supreme Court said there is grave abuse of discretion by the Secretary General by holding on to the 3 previous impeachment complaint by not referring it to the Committee on Justice. So, illegal na yung ginawa ng Secretary General. So on the fourth complaint, they still consider the first three as valid because they did not dismiss it. Congress said nga, we dismissed it because we even archived it. No, there was no action to dismiss. So that is why the fourth complaint was considered the fourth, not the first. Because Congress will always say the fourth was the first. But Supreme Court said otherwise. Problema din ito is that the Supreme Court gave due process to the House of Representatives by asking them questions. There were 9 valid questions. Sino nag-file? These were not answered by the House of Representatives because they said, amin na to. Wala na kayo, you're not part of it. So what did the Supreme Court do? They had to go to publications, newsletters of ABS-CBN, mga news clippings, and then publications because these are considered as valid sources, no? Mga news sources. So that's where they got it because the House of Representatives did not answer them perfectly. So when the results came out, the Supreme Court decided in favor of the petitioner that the fourth complaint, impeachment complaint, was unconstitutional because it violated the one-year bar rule. So, kanus aday magsugod ang one-year bar rule the moment the first impeachment complaint was filed. So, December, imong gikuwag 4th, February pa, wala pa. So, the next, wanted to say that the last impeachment complaint was February 5. The next valid impeachment complaint that may be filed will be February 6 of 2026.
Okay. From that point, Attorney, dugtungan ko lang. So, pwedeng in case talaga, ma-dismiss ito totally, itong impeachment case na dito ngayon, by February 2026, February 5, 2026, a new impeachment case may be filed.
Yes,
correct.
may be
Kasi
filed.
nga, 1 year lang.
Yeah, and a lot of critics were saying there might be sham complaints. Delikado yan because the problem if the Supreme Court will do this and has decided this kind of thing, nga 1 year bar rule, ang mga first, second, third will already start the counting of the 1 year bar rule. Mingon ang kwan nga, anybody can file a petition for impeachment and that can already stop any further impeachments. Like for example, si VP Sara or President Bongbong Marcos will hire anybody in Congress just to file an impeachment complaint. And that will already start the counting. The Supreme Court said in its decision, any sham complaint, makita mong sham, in other words, this is just an harassment complaint, can be dismissed outrightly and would not set the bar of the ban. So,
that's very clear.
That's
very
not
clear.
a problem.
Yes, Mayor.
No, I want to ask Attorney Regal, why didn't they take action on the first 3 impeachment motions that they made in Congress? So, what could be the reason?
That I do not know. The reason could because the House of Congress or House of Representatives never said why they didn't take action on that. I think the most possible and probable reason is that it might not be very strong, the first 3 complaints. If you put it in the Senate for its hearing already, it might be very weak and might be dismissed outrightly.
I have another question. Anong mahimo man siyang grave abuse of discretion by the Secretary General if kung wala nagipasa sa Committee on Justice?
Naman good na supposedly after 10 days good. Within 10 days, you have to pass it to the rightful committee. Wa man good na gibuhat sa secretary.
How would it benefit them kung wala nila gipasa to?
Supposedly at first, Mayor at first good ani sila ay dilanta na hilabtan kay I'm sure there was negotiation or there were backdoor reasons why, no? Di pa gid sila ganahan sigurong i-impeach si Sara at that time. It might be sensitive. It might not be the right time. They wanted to have the right timing to file the impeachment. Siya, di lang sa taning tulo kay weak man. So, ningon ang Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court has the power of judicial review. And the Supreme Court can also stop any grave abuse of discretion. So kung Secretary General magbuot-buot lang, kung kanus-an niyang i-forward ang usa ka complaint, that's grave abuse.
So, duha ato ang points na kuha kay Attorney Regal Oliva. Una, the case dili kusog, it's not strong, di ba? Ikaduha, they're hesitating. Kaya dili siya kusog. Mo nang wala nila pasa on the first, second, and third.
Yeah.
So, this means that this issue could be purely political. Mo gani. Mo na ako gusto ba gikan sa ihang pag-explain unsa ang action sa Congress so that the people would know. Di ba nga karon na niabot na sa punto sa ingon ani na nasa Supreme Court. Na
Political
yun siya.
And the Supreme Court also acknowledged that, Mayor, ha?
Yeah.
Nga, the impeachment process is a political process. It's sui generis. It means it's political at the same time, but it must also be legal and constitutional. So, dili pwede nga political lang.
Yes.
Kailangan good, you should follow steps and you should also follow the Constitution.
That's true. Yeah, yes, Hanna, you'd like to add?
Yes, Attorney, one of the critiques and one of the na-mentioned in the House regarding this impeachment and the decision, the ruling of the Supreme Court was that the hands-off, they basically said na hands-off our case, this is not within your power. So they basically questioned the Supreme Court if meron ba talaga silang power to decide on impeachment cases.
Yes,
Can you enlighten us?
Very nice question. Because the Constitution is very, very clear that impeachment complaints the exclusive power of impeachment happens or must emanate from the House of Representatives. When it comes to the hearing of the impeachment, it is vested in the House of Senate. So that's very, very clear. So sabi ng HOR, or House of Representatives, amin to, wala kayong kinalaman nito, Supreme Court. But that is where they are wrong. Because the Supreme Court also is empowered constitutionally to conduct judicial review. And part of judicial review is to stop any branch, any instrumentality in the government which commits grave abuse of discretion. So if any of the branches, if any department in government will commit this, the Supreme Court can enter and say, this is the power of judicial review, we will stop you. And this is what happened now.
That's true.
It's very clear.
Yeah.
At least,
Diyan yung makita nga, it's a smear campaign by the Speaker of the House, Martin Romualdez. Otherwise, dili man na maabot gud sa Congress na nga issue. Smear campaign na siya.
Oh, klaro man siguro.
Sustain nila ba? So, they filed it, di ba? Nag-file sila kausa. Then, kaduha na pod. Kaya para gusto yun nila nga, butangan og kanang emphasis ba nga, ang confidential funds, yung corruption. Ana ba? While, lahi pa itong issue na sa ilang ginabuhat sa Congress.
Sure. And I think we'll discuss that later on sa podcast, Mayor. Attorney, Mayor, balikan ko lang because you've mentioned ito nga question na, bakit ba hindi nyo transmit agad to the proper committee itong impeachment complaint? I'm not sure. I think there was also a justification na because they have more than enough number of signatures, the attorney, which allowed them to transmit it directly na to the Senate. No need for the discussion daw sa committee. Is that correct?
That is where the Supreme Court said, no, dili na pwede. You have to discuss and you have to make each congressman read the articles of impeachment. And by the Supreme Court makes it unbelievable na one congressman can read how many pages of the articles of impeachment in just 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
You can't. It's impossible for a human being to do that ba.
True.
So mao na nga ningon ang Supreme Court, no. Di na lang kita magstorya on how it was done, but it is really on what has been filed. Wa naman sila ni adto na lang gyud sa unsay laman sa articles of impeachment. They didn't go there anymore. But on the first na lang gyud, on the 1-year bar rule, unconstitutional naman, wala na siya diretsyo.
And I think that's very clear. No, thank you, Attorney Regal. And ito na nga. Furthermore, 13 nga, it's a unanimous decision. May nag-argue nga. I think Senator Rodante Marcoleta even mentioned last week na na okay sana pagdebatehan natin kung 8-7 yung boto.
Correct.
Right? But it's a 13-0 unanimous vote.
The way I see it, Congress wants to isolate the issue within Congress. They don't want, the Supreme Court, a separate branch of government, to, intervene on their decision so that they can push through with the impeachment. Mo na lang gusto, di ba? They can push through with the impeachment just by themselves. But that's not the way it works because we have the three branches of government.
And these are co-equal branches, ha? And let's remember, how many justices do we have in the Supreme Court? There are 15. Okay? Nganong 13 naman insulting unanimous. One is absent because is on leave, sick leave, si Justice Singh, and the other one abstained. So kung walay ni dissent, it means all of those who approved and who said that unanimous na ang 13, kaya wa may ni dissent. Kung napay ni dissent, that could not have been unanimous.
Okay.
Kaya abstain naman ang usa. So that's not considered a vote.
That's different. Okay.
Pero ito ganang doon na knockout ba, unanimous ba? Kung si Pacquiao pa to ba, ang taon ng tulo ka judge, ihahagid tanan. Lison kay lalison. Lison.
That's the point.
Muna, when they say nga naaba ni Hope ang motion for reconsideration, I don't know. It's rare. It's very rare
we'll get there.
for a unanimous vote to be overturned.
Tama. Okay, just before we move on to the discussion sa Senate, segue ko lang, Mayor Attorney, kasi nga, related to this discussion, itong when the Supreme Court released released the decision, certain personalities were nagkomento, Mayor, and somehow naging controversial yung comments nila, particularly si Larry Gadon, Congressman Sendanya, and Richard Hederian. These three, may mga nasabi against the Supreme Court. And then a group of lawyers also filed a petition to cite them indirect contempt.
Indirect contempt.
Correct. Okay. Ito na nga, Attorney Regal, since you're here, can you help us understand ano ba itong indirect contempt at anong pinagkaiba niya sa criticism?
Okay. You can criticize the Supreme Court. In every decision that the Supreme Court makes or pronounces to the public, when you read the Supreme Court decision, you can disagree with the decision. Why? Because the decisions of the Supreme Court may change in the future. So that's why your disagreement is very important. But your disagreement must be made in valid grounds. Okay? You have no right to say contemptuous statements against the justices of the Supreme Court. You cannot call them names because of the decision that they made. Just disagree with valid points, with legal points. Because if you say names, if you call them tuta ni Duterte, that means you are disrespecting the men and women in robes. And remember, the Supreme Court is the last bastion of democracy. Kung imo nang bugal-bugalan ang Supreme Court, kinsa pa na may mo respeto sa tibok gobyerno. Mona, the Supreme Court is very sensitive when it comes to contemptuous statement. That's why you can disagree with the Supreme Court, but you cannot spit on them. That's very, very important. And for people who may have been educated enough to say these kind of things to the Supreme Court, you cannot say this is freedom of speech. Because, as we always say, the freedom of speech ends when that freedom when the act of contempt of the Supreme Court will begin. So it will end there. And that's why those indirect contempt filed against those people are very much valid for other lawyers. Because ikaw kung lawyer ka, you read those statements against the Supreme Court, you'll be very hurt. Because we're part of the bar. Kaming mga abogado. We're supposed to protect the Supreme Court and justice itself because we're advocates. So if we will hear any person who will be criticizing in a contemptuous way ang atong mga justices, it is our duty as lawyers to protect our justices. That's why kato sila ni Attorney Topacio, Attorney Tolentino had to file those cases against those people. Many people are asking, bakit si De Lima wala man na-appeal?
She apologized, di ba?
Diba? Because she apologized. Immediately. De Lima knew. she's a lawyer, no? She's a top-notcher. She knew that, you know, that might have been a contemptuous statement that I made. So, sige, stops ako.
Correct. At
I'll
least,
say
klaro,
sorry.
kasi pinagdebatehan yan, Mayor, may sasabi that's free speech, that's only criticism, but I think that's very clear, no? Attorney Regal laid down the points there. Bago tayo mag ano ba ang penalty niyan, Attorney? Once you're-
Indirect contempt, about 6 months siguro. Very, very minimal. Maka-afford na sila, 30,000 pesos. But you can be imprisoned for 6 months. It may be bailable as well. No, pero the thing is, you will have a record in court.
For sure.
I just want to go back, Attorney Mayor, dun sa ruling ng Supreme Court. I just want to ask, Attorney, because there are all these violations that the Supreme Court has made. Nalatag nila doon sa ruling nila, no? They mentioned all these violations that the House failed to adhere to the Constitution. So, my question is, are these violations, itong mga laws na nakasabi doon, is this found in the Constitution? Is it plainly stated in the Constitution about the one-year bar rule?
Yeah, it's stated there. In the articles of impeachment, also in the Philippine Constitution 1987, it was very clear kung anong rules, no?
It was
who
written there.
are impeachable officers, and then when can you file, and that each impeachable officer can only face impeachment complaint one time per 1 year. So very, very clear na
It's
siya.
very clear.
So mauna siya, why is the Constitution, the spirit of the Constitution seem to be like that? Because these impeachable officers have very important obligations in our country. And kung imuras lang pirmi samok-samokon by impeachment, dili na maka-trabahog tarong. So that's why 1 year lang, once a year na nyo filean, and then that's it. So that's the spirit of that.
So, Attorney, one has to wonder, no? Of course, in the House, there are lawyers.
Yes.
The Speaker himself is a lawyer. So, one has to wonder, did they really expect the impeachment to prosper? Since I'm sure they were aware that there were violations.
They have also interpretations of their own. Basically, we can interpret the law in our liberal way. No, as a lawyer, you can also say this is right, this is wrong. But the other lawyer will also say what is right to you may be wrong to me, because law can be very relative. But as we said, the last arbiter of these laws, kinsa mo interpret ani the judiciary. That's why we have courts. That's why the courts will say, lawyer 1, you are wrong, lawyer 2, you are correct. And that's why there are also methods of appeal. And this is part of our democracy. And that's why our democracy may be slow, but it is beautiful as well.
Correct. Sakto talaga sinabi mo last
Hindi,
episode, Mayor.
kung ako'y pastoryaon, Martin Romualdez really thought na mabraso niya yung issue na yan.
I'm sure.
Yun lang man talaga yan. To make it short ba? Taas makitong istorya di ba? Akala talaga ng House or ni Speaker Romualdez na mabraso nito na...
And which he did, ha? Yung nagibraso tanan mga
Yeah, he
members
tried.
sa House.
He tried.
He did it already. So that's why he passed this with 215 signatures and napay ni apas nga 30 the next day. So nabraso gid niya
But
tanan.
what I mean is to the point na
Pero
ma-impeach...
Impeach yun.
To the point nga mabraso ba niya ang Senate,
Senate.
o mabraso ba niya ang Judiciary, the Supreme Court, there, diya siya nasayop.
Exactly.
Na-miscalculate niya or ambot lang or
Grabe yung
salida ra gid ha. Anyway, I think we should move on to the Senate na.
The Senate, yes.
The Senate made headlines last week because of the discussion of the impeachment case. Nagbotohan sila, Mayor. It took them 6 hours, I think, around 6 hours na sa plenaryo. Nagbotohan on the motion filed by Senator Rodante Marcoleta, the motion to archive the...
At first, it was to dismiss.
To dismiss, correct. And then it was amended. Now, motion to archive the impeachment at nanalo ito, Mayor. 19 senators voted for the motion. 4 ang no, and then 1 abstained, Senator Lacson. Now, ito na nga, na-archive na ang impeachment case. Citing nga, most of the 19 senators, they cited the ruling of the Supreme Court, saying that they respected the decision of the Supreme Court, being the Supreme Court. Now, Ang unang tanong dyan muna, Mayor Atty. Regal, para maintindihan natin mga kababayan, ano bang ibig sabihin ng to archive? Ano bang pinagkaiba niya sa to table? Kasi Senator Soto even moved for that motion, to table it.
table.
And then there's to dismiss. So ano bang pinagkaiba nito, Atty. Regal, at anong implication nito sa kaso?
Okay, let's start with motion to dismiss because that was the first motion. Motion to dismiss was filed by Senator Rodante Marcoleta. It just means that, dismiss, automatic, kuha ang kaso ilabay sa basurahan. Mauna siya. So that's dismissal. So outright dismissal from the Senate, the senator said, can we not dismiss? Because there is a motion for reconsideration filed by the House of Representatives. And dismissing it might also make it unconstitutional for the Senate. Because according to other senators, this is not yet a final decision. But there is a very big noteworthy thing in the decision, that the decision of the Supreme Court is final and executory.
Immediately.
So the first decision said final and executory. And that is why Rodante Marcoleta wanted to make to motion or to move that it must be dismissed. But they said, let's archive it. First, the second motion was to lay on the table. Between motion to dismiss or lay on the table takes precedence when it comes to parliamentary procedure. So unahon na to decide ang lay on the table. What's lay on the table? We just put it on the table and let's discuss it when we want to discuss it. So, mura siya og nagcomatose dinha, ibutan lang diya sa table. So, Rodante Marcoleta amended his motion nga i-archive na to. What's the difference? Now, the difference between parihara man kay paminawon, archive, ibutang sa kabinet, ang usa table, ibutang sa table, parihara gyud duha, paminawon. But here's the thing. When you say lay on the table, that is the act. But when you say archive, you do a positive thing first. In other words, before you archive, you have to determine if the Senate has jurisdiction over the case. And the 19 senators say, we do not have jurisdiction because according to the Supreme Court, the impeachment complaint was void ab initio. In other words, it was void from the very start. Since the House of Representatives, hangtod na abot na sa Senate, wala, void na siya. So that is the positive act of Senate. They said that the case of the impeachment is void ab initio, but then pending the motion for reconsideration, we will archive it. So it's like putting it in a filing cabinet, lock it there, rather than put it on table. Ana ra gyud siya analogy ana niya. Kay ang nakakuan sa put it on the table, mas kuyaw manggod na siya. Kanang they can always revive it and say, okay, we will open it and then we will call for the impeachment hearing. Because anytime you can pero archive gani, you have to have a positive or positive act from the Senate.
Okay. But when you archive it, attorney, pwede pa din siyang i-revive, right?
Pwede nimo siyang i-revive.
But they have to make a better argument because
Pwede nimong i-revive pero kailangan with valid grounds.
For sure. It's
kiniingon na gani itong Supreme Court, di ba, nga final and executory. So meaning, wala na to. Dili na, kung ibalik pa na ninyo with the same argument, dili na naman nadawaton. Di ba? So mo to ingon pa sa Senate, ang giingon sa Senate, ana sila nga, nag-ingon naman ng Supreme Court nga, human naman eh. And bank good to, so i-archive na naman eh, unless, kung mag-MR ang Congress, with a better argument, or, like, they adjust it, tanaw na po nila i-review, so nalan dyan naka-archive.
And if they can only revive that, murabag, as I've said, gilakan na siya di as filing cabinet. Pero ilang na ma-revive kung ang motion for reconsideration from the Supreme Court i-grant by the Supreme Court. Kung wala gani, no other act can be done. Unlike sa lay on the table, pwede rin ginang musulti na po sa Ontiveros, can we revive the impeachment and let's form the impeachment court?
So mas maganda yung archive. Very
Much-
positive
much
yun na.
better.
Positive.
Pero para na gid nako gid mayor, if I were to decide, it's really to dismiss. Kaya wa man gid sila'y jurisdiction ang ang Senate according to the Supreme Court.
Tama. Sorry, jump lang ako ngayon, naalala ko lang ba. In one of the debates during the floor is itong present ni Senator Hintiveros na yung decision on na en banc decision and then na division decision. Nagkaroon ng debate dyan, Mayor, because may present siya na mga case nga na scenario na na-overturn yung decision nga daw ng Supreme Court. And then Senator Marcoleta asked Senator Hintiveros, ano ba yan? En banc case ba yan or division decision? Attorney Regal, ano bang pinagkaiba nitong dalawa?
Okay.
At anong decision ba ang pwedeng i-overturn talaga? Bakit siya naging issue?
Si Senator Marcoleta Mangod, he said that it will be very hard for the Supreme Court to overturn its decision because unanimous nga ang en banc. And then Risa Ontiveros said na no, it happened already. Na unanimous decisions of the Supreme Court were overturned by itself. So Marcoleta asked, was that bank decisions or branch decisions? Now, what's a branch decision? A branch decision is composed of 5 justices because the Supreme Court is composed of 3 branches. No, ilan ang i-divide nila. Nga naman kay kay kaso nga ilang i-decide. So, mag-branch 1, branch 2, branch 3 ta. And then after that, you can decide. And that is final and executory. Kung mag-MR ka dito, from the branch, they will forward it to the en banc. The en banc is the 15 justices. Mura ka nag-atubang diya sa mga gods of Padre Faura. The 15 justices na din na imong atubangon ug imo nang i-fight ang imuhang kaso. So, pero kaning impeachment complaint ni Vice President Sara, wa na iagi og branch. Ni diretso ang en banc og decide. And unanimous ang tanan. So, how do you make it nga ilan nang i-reverse? You need around 8 justices nga musulti ay sayop di ay mi. Para lang i-reverse na ang decision sa previous. So, it is so ambot na lang, close to impossibility na makaingon kag ila ba nang i-reverse.
That needs divine intervention.
No, ang point magod is, kung mao ang argument ni Risa Ontiveros ba, mura magog nganong dili na lang mo respetoon gyud ang en banc decision sa Supreme Court. Bugat kayo na. Bugat kaayo na. Di ba, unsa to, God sa Padre Paura na, diya sa matubangan. Unya, murag mo ingon ka karon, you're a senator, you're an elected official, and yet, kani mga tawhanan na nag-skwila na sila, bugas siya. Di ba? Unya, imong i-question karon ang en banc nga decision. And you're just, in politics, and you have your own biases, and it's subjective to you ba, ang case gani sa impeachment. Kani mga huwes ba, kani mga Supreme Court justices, objective na sila.
They have to. Balaod ba yan na yun?
Diba?
This is funny, and I'd like to quote Rowena Guanzon on this one, because she said nga, ang qualification kuno to become a justice is that you must pass the bar, and then you must have a very, very colorful law practice. You must have experiences in the judiciary for how many years, and then in order to become a justice, and then you have to really be in the scrutiny of the Judicial and Bar Council, which is very, very difficult on JBC, to be recommended to the president to be appointed as justice. Pero a senator and congressman, kuno, you're able to read and write.
Diba? These are highly technical people ba? Nga mo decision na sila ba? Dili na ka ng...
That's why it's important that we also look into it. And then to continue with Risa Ontiveros, she said that those were en banc decisions. Katong iyang gipang-quote nga mga cases.
Pinanindigan niya, oo.
And then, when we got back to the cases that she quoted, these were not en banc decisions.
Oh, really?
These were branch decisions which were overturned by the en banc. So, mauna siya ang...
What does that mean? Overturned by the en banc?
Okay. Ang first decision sa Supreme Court, Mayor, was branch. 5 kabok nag-decide. Nag-motion for reconsideration ang katong petitioner, gi-overturn sa en banc. Gisaka nila sa en banc. Maunay katong kang Risa. Now, the thing is, ang nahitabos kang Sara, it's en banc na diretsyo. So, was there a case in history? Boni gisulti ni Marcoleta, I cannot remember a jurisprudence nga nag-en banc na. Gibaliktad pagit sa en banc. So, that's why it's hard.
Unless may unbank powered to
Napagi basta saan ba? Wala na. The end
That's
na
valid.
siya.
That's understandable. Oh, thank you for... Tama yun.
The thing was, during the debates, Attorney Mayor, there were several senators who said, na I think it was Tito Soto who said that a unanimous decision could have been a unanimous mistake. And it was also Bam Aquino who said na ang Supreme Court daw, sige, ingon ni Bam. Basta, they've implied several times that the unbank decision of the Supreme Court could have been a mistake.
That remains to be seen.
13 justices.
I don't like to say that there is also, that they're correct, but it remains to be seen. Let's just see how the Supreme Court will appreciate the motion for reconsideration.
Correct. Okay. Now, since nabotohan na nga ito, attorney, no, and for sure, magproproceed pa to oral argument siguro yung sa motion for reconsideration. Just scenario lang, attorney, what if by divine intervention and the heavens will really intervene, ma-overturn talaga, mag-grant yung MR ng House of Representatives? Anong implication nun? Anong mangyayari?
You know, I don't like to talk about it because I don't like to speculate.
Okay.
But if the motion for reconsideration will be granted by the Supreme Court, meaning ang unanimous vote will be overturned by the unbank itself, then mura siyag muhimo depending on the wordings of the decision, but it might be saying that the impeachment complaint was not void ab initio.
Okay.
In the very
To
first
begin with,
place.
yeah.
So the Senate can continue. So
Okay.
this is the right time that the Senate can go back and then by the power vested on that overturning decision, can discuss and form again the impeachment court.
Okay. Okay. Go, Mayor.
Parang kakalabanin nila yung sarili nila pagka, di ba, pagka
Baguhin nila yung
baguhin nila yung decision nila.
True.
Oh.
Most of the time in any court, no, let's say 95% of all cases, mag-file gibog MR sa usa ka korte, miski pa nag-RTC, di gyud na i-grant. Ni-decide na ko, hindi pa kung pakuanon. Kanamang kung magkuan ka, na may rules on MR, misappropriation of facts, di ba? Were there facts that they misappropriated? And then the House of Representatives said, there are facts that you misappropriated. Like, katong inyong magipang quote sa news article of ABS-CBN are wrong. But was that fatal? It's not fatal. Kay katura man siya, there are other sources that they also quoted from. That was not the only thing that they depended on. So, on solid rock, the MR of the House of Representatives, when you read it, it's like, what may bago? Diba? So, it
Can
might
you put up can you quote, let's quote Senator Cayetano. Kung gusto ninyo,
talunin nyo na lang si Sara Duterte on 2028.
di ba?
Exactly. Sakto jud kay na.
Yeah, gusto magudnan you know, these people, and I think the speaker, I think is aiming for the presidency in the next elections. So that's why he wants to eliminate, you know,
Potential.
the opponent, you know, before even the elections happen.
Which he has been doing. Nakita po na nato pag 2025 elections, Mayor.
midterm, yes.
Yun sa man niya iyang mga opponent, di ba, gipag-disqualify?
Yeah.
So, mao pud na iyang buhat.
Pila naman naka-election wala ni Dagan yung way kontra. It's either he buys, kung natunggan, he buys them out or disqualify niya.
Pila gud to ka bukayin kontra unong ka kontra niya, all disqualified.
Well, tama si Amy ba? Nga bunjing, nga kanang spoiled brat ba? Diba? Gusto ba? Kanang bitaw, nagdako ka nga that you know that you have money and power and influence, that you can get away with anything using money, with all, you know, these resources. So kaning tawanan ingana siya, the way he is right now is like, is really his core. He was brought up to be someone who, the way he is right now.
Mura bag bata ba nga niligid sa supermarket kay wala palit tigduan? Kana
So, yeah, so let's move on to his...
Correct. Speaking of the speaker, no, just just before the Senate session last week, he released a video statement. Pag-usapan yung kanyang video statement, attorney and mayor, no, and again, asserting the authority of the Congress to initiate the impeachment case. But isa sa notable doon, Mayor, is yung parang seemingly threat niya or warning to the Supreme Court justices, saying, in his words nga, reminding them na sila din daw mismo, ang mga justices, are also impeachable officers. Pinag-usapan nyo na statement, Attorney Regal and Mayor. So, what do you think? What's your assessment? Or ano sa tingin nyo ba? Anong komento nyo, reaction nyo?
Una, there was an en banc decision, di ba? Kanya, I can't imagine how someone can afford to say that, you know, because the branches of government, supposedly, sagrado man na. It's sacred ba? Mo ang treatment dapat ni mo, ana. So, kaning judiciary karon na pagawas og decision, dapat i-honor na nimo. Unya, because it's really kind of fixated on this matter ba, kaning impeachment ni VP Sara ba. I do not know such a person could exist to say that.
Yeah, exactly.
If I may read lang, Mayor Attorney Regal, ito yung sa statement niya na, this is not an act of defiance, it is an act of duty. Next, he also said, we do not challenge the authority of the court. We seek only to preserve the rightful role of the House, the voice of the people, in the process of accountability. The Supreme Court, he said, is co-equal branch of government. Its wisdom is deep, its authority is real. Sinabi niya naman yon. But its members, like the President and the Vice President, are also impeachable officers. Out of the blue, pinasok niya yun na statement.
It's like a, you know, you're releasing statement with a false sense of propriety. You're the Speaker of the House, the leader of a co-equal branch, and you say that to another co-equal branch. Like it's like you're threatening because the exclusive authority of impeachment comes from them. It's like a veiled threat to the Supreme Court justices saying, kung di minimo tagaan sa amo ang MR, impeachon ko kamo. Oh, spoiled.
Grabe lagi. Grabe good.
Di ba? Oh, grabe good. It's like, we just submitted our motion for reconsideration to the Supreme Court, and then you release that statement. So what are you trying to say? So, it's like you're just telling us, you're reminding them subtly that, okay, we have an MR there, take care of it, or else. That.
Yeah, he feels very powerful right now. That's what I think. He's drunk with power because I think he's the fifth most powerful person in the country.
I think he is the first.
He is now.
He acts like the first.
So ganito, ingon ni Rowena Guanzon, Kim Bunjing. Supreme Leader Kim Bunjing.
Okay, compared to the president, I think he's calling more of the shots here.
Look what he did to the 2025 elections. Puro ayuda.
Exactly.
Nga na ba, kanang ipugos niya yung gusto. Mawagid ako makita niya nga, di mo na yung Hanna, uy. May mga, dili lang ikaw ang tao anong kalibutan. Ano na pa man, may dire. Ano mo rin ikaw man ang center of the universe ba? Murag Hanna ba, uy. Gusto naman niya siya.
Lagi.
That's true, Mayor. Yes, Hanna.
Out of curiosity, Attorney, could this be the statement of Speaker Martin Romualdez? Could this be in direct contempt?
No, it's not. Because it's not a contemptuous statement, no? He did not spit on the justices. He was just also quoting something that they're empowered to do. It's a reminder also but so it's not really a contemptuous statement.
Yeah, but you know, the way I see it, if you threat another co-equal branch of government, that makes you, you don't see them as equal.
Exactly.
Diba?
Yes.
But it may not be contemptuous, but it can lead to a constitutional crisis.
Correct.
Which is a more dangerous path for a democratic country like the Philippines.
You know, some people said, Attorney, that during the whole impeachment, the SC released their ruling, and then the Senate had to decide whether to archive or to dismiss. Some people said that we were on the verge of a constitutional crisis. Now, the Senate has has decided to archive the impeachment. Do you think we're past that?
We're past that. For me, we're past that because they respected the decision of the Supreme Court. If you do not respect the decision of the Supreme Court, then that is already entering into another paradigm, and that is already a crisis. What's a constitutional crisis? Di mo na magubat ang kalibutan kung may constitutional crisis, but the citizens would see, if the Senate or any branch of government do not believe the Supreme Court, why would I?
It will make instability ba? May
So,
unstable imong
correct.
society.
Ikaw kriminal, nakakuha kag decision sa Supreme Court, ang tuumang ko, wala man ang tuong sa Senate. So I will not go to the jail, I will not go to jail, I will escape. So ang civil society will really be destroyed.
Mao na kung ginaingon earlier na dapat i-treat nimo na kami ba mga executibo ko. Before I sign anything, kung nanay pending case, di gyud ko mo pirmaan na unless na ay decision ang korte. Kay sagrado gyud na ilahang decision gyud. At least that's how you see it dapat ba imong perspective ana ba kay wala na sila gibutang diha kay wala na sila kasabot silang ginabuhat, di ba? Kay kaning mga politicians manggod kami kita, mga highly subjective manggod ta ng mga tao. Pero kini sila objective lagi. So sila mo interpret sa law ba. Sila mo nakibaw kung sa to nagasuwat sa constitution, ang wisdom sa constitution maunang muhatag og order. Law and order sa inyong nasod. So dapat respetuon to nimo. Kay mao gyud to sang you know what I mean, di ba?
Regardless of their political leanings, Mayor.
Yeah, of course.
Kay gisuwat na diha sa balaod nato to maintain order.
Because justice is blind.
Dapat. Sorry, nasingit ko, naalala ko sa sinabi ni Atty. Regal na yung mga kriminal ngayon ay nawala. So, ayaw natin dumating sa punto na pag may siserve na warrant of arrest, sasabihin ng kriminal na, kayo ha, impeachable din kayo. Pwede kayo kasuhan. So, wala na. Sira ang
Tao ako ni
society.
Martin Romualdez, I can
Impeach you. But it's funny, but that's really dangerous.
that may lead to a constitutional crisis. That's the effect of a crisis.
I just want to pose this question as well, Attorney, because we were talking about impeachable officers and impeachment. No? It was also raised during the Senate, their debates. It was also raised by one senator, I can't remember who. It was Alan Peter Cayetano, Senator Cayetano. He raised a question to Senator Marcoleta. Should impeachment be an easy process? What is your thoughts on that?
For me, it shouldn't be. No, impeachment should be a difficult process because you are impeaching very powerful positions in government. And if you make it very easy, I could just imagine na ikaw nagtrabaho as president of the country, unsa na may trabaho nimong madawat nga sige lang kag i-impeach. If it's very easy. No, so it should be a tedious constitutional process. So that the person who is threatened to be impeached can work flawlessly and can implement the programs for government.
True.
And to add, I think, the votes of the people, maguna. And you just, impeach an elected official, ingana kadali. So, murag, kontra ra gyapon nimo ang imuhang kaugaling constituents ba. So, di gina siya ingana kadali gyud.
It should be, no? Di gid siya dali kayo. So who are impeachable officers? The president, the vice president are impeachable officers. The justices of the Supreme Court. Dili na siya impeachable.
Maunay dali.
Muna'y dali, mas dali na siya. The ombudsman, these are impeachable officers. But the Speaker of the House, you can always move to declare the seat vacant, Mayor.
It will only take one representative.
To say this seat is vacant and then mag-election dayon, kung mapildi, wala, balik
Halak
si Lincoln.
ka, ganun lang pala yan kadali.
Pwede ba adlaw-adlaw na siya? Kada session ba? I think they have 3 sessions in a week, no? Monday yun. Kung adlaw-adlawon siya ba?
Para ma-feel mo niya. It was also said by Senator Amy during her manifestations. I think she said, sabi niya, bakit hindi na lang yung speaker niyo ang palitan niyo? Yes.
That's why nasa una-una nga impeachable siya. But dili ikuan lang din, no? Nalang di mo manifesta na, no?
That's a very sound suggestion of Senator Amy.
Anyway, so I think yun na nga, no? Enough na tayo doon sa statement ni Speaker kasi nga, actually nagpalabas din siya ng kanyang statement again after the voting na nangyari sa Senate, but it's the same, no? The same content. What we all look forward to hearing ano talaga magiging desisyon ng Korte Suprema sa motion for reconsideration. You know, we trust the courts and we respect their decision. Antabayanan natin ano ang susunod na kabanata. But for now, the impeachment case has been archived. Okay, that's klaro. Another discussion lang on the House of Representatives, Mayor and Atty. Regal, no, hindi na to impeachment, but sa Congress pa rin ito because habang pumuputok tong usapan sa impeachment, no, si Senator Panfilo Lacson was interviewed, I think in a radio station, and then he mentioned eto nga about sa mga congressman na nagiging contractor din ng kanilang sariling DPWH projects. Sabi niya, he heard of 67 congressmen daw na involved dito. Contractor na sila ng project, tapos sitting congressman din sila. Tapos Senator Erwin Tulfo also mentioned na siya din may kakilala siyang 10. May alam siyang 10. And during the session last week, Senator Rodante Marcoleta, during the interpellations, banggit din niya na galing ako sa House, alam kong nangyayari yan, na may mga involved talaga. So,
You know, I'm happy and sad at the same time because this has been going on for a very long time already. And I'm happy nga finally, you know, na gikan mismo sa mga sa legislatura natin na sinasabi nila na it's happening.
Yeah.
kasi nga, Mayor Attorney, nag-ugat nga to dun sa statement ni Presidente sa SONA na mahiya naman kayo referring to those nag-kickback sa flood control projects. Una sigurong tanong talaga natin kasi nga nangyayari na for the longest time ba? Is this really a legal issue or an ethical issue or both?
Okay, it's both, no?
Okay.
Ethical and legal issue. First and foremost, these congressmen are not given the funds.
Okay.
Strictly speaking, technically, ang pera di dadaan sa kanila. How? Because from the Department of Budget, it goes to the DPWH. No, and DPWH implements the project.
Implementing agency.
But we all know what's going on in the ground. DPWH is being contacted by the congressmen, and the congressmen are the ones who will lobby and who will tell the DPWH, gusto ko tong project na to. And DPWH is only the implementing arm. Supposedly, wala talaga yan because congressmen are supposed to do legislative work only. Exclusive. That's their job. Hindi sila pwedeng, they cannot implement project because that's an executive branch job or obligation. But because lagi, daghang kislag palusot din budget insertions, everything, now they're getting money or they're allocated money in their district na sila pwede mag-vote asa i-implement. Now, legally speaking, di good na to ma-point nga si congressman ang illegal ni siya because he's a contractor. Maybe he's a contractor in the very first place. And then won a congressional seat as a contractor. That can be possible. But if you are allocating money in your district and you're a contractor, you are bound with the ethical standards as a public officer.
Conflict of interest.
Conflict of interest will come in. And that is where you can be judged as grave misconduct. And you can be dismissed from service. But, you know, ang mo implement, bisig imo pa ng ipa-ombudsman si congressman, ang mo implement sa decision sa ombudsman si Speaker of the House. Now, Speaker of the House, again, will he implement this? Nga kung i-dismiss na si congressman nga atong kihaon o grave abuse, grave misconduct, I don't think so.
Tama.
So, nalang ko ikuan ba kanang it's a similar case ba? Kasi yung nangyari nung elections, they used the ayuda. It's a similar case ba? Okay. So, Congress should pass the budget for, you know, like social welfare. So this goes to DSWD. Pero what happened in the elections, yung mga congressman they claimed the ayuda as their own. Diba? They went to campaigns, rallies, and all of that, and they distributed it. Andun sila. Andun yung presence nila, which is, you know, supposed to be not allowed because the implementing agency already is there. It's murag na hindi na kailangan na nandun ka kasi pinasa mo na yung budget, nilagay mo na doon sa DSWD, yung DSWD gagawin yung trabaho nila, tapos sila yung magde-determine kung paano i-allocate or ibibigay sa mga tao na tunay na nangangailangan ng ayuda or the social services na budget. Ngayon, ito. So kung ikaw, congressman ka, then you lobbied for something, tapos sabi mo, nakinig ka sa mga tao mo, kailangan namin ng road dito. By road, Tagalog?
Kalsada, daan.
Kalsada, daan. No? Kailangan namin ng tulay dito. Ikaw yung maglalabi. Ikaw yung sasabihin mo na, okay, ito yung narinig ko sa mga tao, ito yung kailangan namin, so DPWH, do your job. So sila yung mag-implement. So hindi ka nakasama dapat doon. So mauna ng mga kickback na.
There you go. And I admire Congressman Toby Chanco for really bringing it up. No? Wag na tayo magplastikan. This is what's happening in the House. You know, the Supreme Court declared this unconstitutional already in 2014. And we called this previously as PDAF. We call this whatever you call it, no? If it acts like a pig, if it eats like a pig, if it walks like a pig, it's a pig. So pork barrel pa ni sa una, nahimo ni PDAF, and then karon gihimo na po din nila og something else, no? Countrywide Development Fund. It went into so many names. O karon it's flood control. That's why they're getting a lot of kickbacks now. As congressmen, as contractors, they can always reassign. Di ba? Kaya supposedly, if you're elected congressman, you will divest from all business dealings that you have so that you can only concentrate with legislative work. But the truth is, I'm sure, divest nga, pero ang naandyan, pamangkin, best friend. Di ba? Tauhan niya. So still the ones working for those big corporations as contractors will still be his.
I think na magi-threshold yun ang kaning mga para ni Toby Chanco. Siguro, it's really that bad ba? Na to the point na nakapagsalita talaga si Congressman Toby Chanco, no? He's a congressman right now.
No, but this expose is, Mayor and Attorney, hindi to bago ha. Even Mayor Magalong has been talking about this many times and a lot more politicos dinidiscuss to. But
yeah, and what's more painful is that people are now looking at it in a very normal sense. Nanay normalcy ang corruption.
Perhaps that's what really they want to happen. Na maging i-normalize siya.
That's why, and it's very, very painful because that's our taxes, Harbs. And they're making corruption as something that people should be accepting of. Like, sige lang, dawat na lang mo aning daan. Anyway, at least naamin na buhat, but we're getting 30 to 40%.
No. Buhat na aning daan, then pagkahuman, bungkago na po nato na kay para makabalik ta diya kay duol rad ang equipo na alam diya sa duol, makahimo din ta kuan niya dugang na po tag budget. Sos, Ginoo.
Mag-flood control, naka-control ba og flood? What you'd never. Sus, my gosh.
Ang kani yung wala ko kabalo pero kabalo ko sa Sibon katong kuan flood control project ng way Kabilya.
Kana, Mandawi na iyor sa ako ng distrito. Welcome to Mandawi City.
Wala kay ko
Lipak sa kawayan gigamit. Ay, Ginoo. Asa ka ana.
Pero next zona, sasabagin silang walang hiya, magpapalakpakan pa din.
And I do not understand when the president said, mahiya naman kayo, they stood up and then they clapped. Like, what? What's going on?
You know, I see it. Giulol nila ang presidente. Giulol gud nila. Mao ba? Salamat kayo. Ikaw ang presidente karon kay mahimo namo ni tanan.
Yeah.
Sige, atiko na lang kanamo. Sige. Kumbaga kanang ikuan lang isensor lang. Nilagtama ng presidente. Good.
Di ba? What attorney?
Standing ovation pa, di ba?
Ovation nga And I don't understand. That was supposed to be meant for them, no?
I think so.
Ani maganda siya. It's supposed to be this way.
It's confusing.
He's already had 3 years ba into his term ba? He's already 3 years into his term. He could have, not allowed this to happen. Pero, it happened. So, kay kinsang responsibilidad ka dapat karon.
Yeah, true.
Ano maya naman kayo? No, ikaw ang eksekutibo. Pag sinabi mo dyan na dapat hindi yan mangyari, walang corruption dyan, walang ganung mga klaseng mga galawan sa Congress, then, syempre, yung mga tao, they would, adjust to what the president is saying.
Yeah.
Diba? So, pasabot lang, Ana, they don't respect him.
I agree.
Diba?
I agree. I think the Congress do not even look at the president as the most
Powerful.
revered official. Diba? So that's the most painful part.
Mga nag-iinsulto actually siya, standing ovation sa ato, gi-insulto gyud sa ato.
Sarcastic.
Oh,
Sarcastic.
salamat kaayo ikaw gyud na imong presidente karong 2022.
Painful to look at, dude. And
And to quote you, Attorney Regal, no, it's not really the floodwaters ang overwhelming. It's the corruption.
it's the
that's
corruption. Both are overwhelming. And the floodwaters becomes overwhelming because of the corruption. Diba? I cannot understand. Every year we have higher water as flood, and we have higher corruption cases. So that explains.
Pero it's not really hard to see manggod kung unsa gid ang makita nimo kay if you go out of your house ba, magawas ka sa balay bitaw makita mo mga dalan wa man gyud.
Exactly.
Guba. Tanawon national roads inyong tanawon. Kay ang ubad niya LGU, mga interior o kanang mga gagmayng daan. Pero mga highway na to.
Not as good as before. Yeah.
What a very interesting place to be in. Congress.
Dili, magod kung eksekutibo ka, you should make sure na nagamit og tarong ang kwarta. Mao lang mga imong responsibilidad. Nga kung kay nagbabayad ng buwis yung mga tao, protektahan mo yung pera na yon and isisigurado mo na they spend it correctly. Kunwari, mapagawa ka ng daan, dapat magiging daan siya na hindi sabi na
Butas.
ano ba? Pero wala.
Attorney Regal, you mentioned ito nga, in some cases, pinapangalan yung negosyo sa kamag-anak, sa pinsan, or sa best friend. Sa batas ba, ano bang allowed? Yung sa kapamilya?
It's supposed to be within the fourth degree of consanguinity and affinity. You can join already.
Hindi dapat after.
So within the fourth, di ka pwede maka-join, no? Because that will be conflict of interest, and that will also be violative of the Anti-Graft and Corrupt Practices Act. Pero we all know that they can always circumvent the law.
And it's the ombudsman who prosecutes, no?
Yeah, correct. The ombudsman should be the one. And the thing is, nobody's filing cases. And I hope that with Ping Lacson's expose, he can also hold an investigation and then file cases against these people if it's really true.
Should an investigation comment?
It's a leadership issue gyud. It's a leadership issue gyud. Kay dapat ko tayo na budget na dili ka confident na they will spend it in a right way. Iuli dito tarungan na ninyo. Di ko mo to nga kanang 1 kilometro maabot ng 60 million ana ba nga ana good. Iuli dito tarungan na ninyong budget. Di ko na pirmakan. Ibito ko na ana ba. Pero he's saying that but ano niya. Unya, di ba, if ever, ibito niya, mabalik ka sa 2025 budget, which was kanang coined as the most corrupt budget in Philippine history.
Oh yeah, 2025, grabe.
So it will benefit sila gyapon.
The worst.
Wala lagi na.
Kasi for sure there's an oversight committee to do that. But wala, hindi din niya galaw kasi they all report to the House Speaker pa din.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why they're now opening it to the public, ang bicameral conference nila. And now, nigawas na karon nga those who can be present should be accredited by the House Speaker's office. So, unsaon man yung pagka-open sa public. So, kung ako mo adto-adto, I'm sure di ko taga-accreditation.
For sure.
Wala nagkuhan na gining.
Limbungay.
Mao.
Anyway.
Nagtuyok ra ta ba? Nagtuyok ta ba? Dapat man good mo decision ang presidente. He should make a decision. He should make a command ba? Ayun yung ana kay kwarta ba nas tao. Ang pinga na to na. Unya i-develop ninyo ang country. Let's put up infrastructure kanang well-built infrastructure nga that would last for the generations to come so that we can build a country. Para tanan ta makalihog, it will stimulate the economy. Unya, mulambo ang mga tao na nasa ubos. Ingana raman na eh.
True. I agree. I agree.
Well, easier said than done, but mo dapat ng trabaho gitunta sa presidente.
The president also said this one in his SONA, nga yang ipa-investigate ng mga flood control projects, etc., etc. I hope he will do it, and I hope that even kung iyahang kauban, iyang i-check og apil. Ako ang katong wala lang ni Butar og ni abstain lang ni Martin Romualdez may ilahang first atubangon sa flood control.
Correct. And I think he even mentioned na he already has the names.
Ano mo ni siya? Ito nga presidente ba? Kita mo ng mga pyramiding, mga Ponzi scheme na mga kuan nakalapel. Ingana na siya. Kanang tig-inganyo lang ba? Sige, ana, nya, muna nya katong kuan, open-minded ba kayo? Congress po pakpak ta. Kidagan pag mo apilan eh, ngana na siya. Gamo siya tong nakalapil dito nga tigwan. Oh, ngana. Muna
Makaguol kaayo yor.
scammer gyud ba?
Ayun nga. Balikan ko lang, he mentioned nga he already has the names, but when Yusek Claire Castro was asked kung sino ito, sabi na, ay, hindi namin ugali yan, i-broadcast namin yung pangalan.
So it was already it was a hit against the former president. All right.
Baka papunta naman to lahat sa Duterte mayor. Baka
Dili.
Every
ally.
answer of Claire Castro is always a hit against the former administration.
For sure.
That's the most difficult part.
What makes it more tragic, I think, Mayor, Attorney, yung flood control, is that people are actually losing their lives because of the substandard projects or the lack of the project.
I agree.
And
I
it's
agree.
really such a tragedy, in the Philippines. And if I would also want to mention this, since sinabi ni Lacson that sinabi niya na the flood control initiatives is one of the main sources of corruption in infrastructure spending. And he also mentioned a story na meron daw 50 projects, sabay-sabay 50 million sa isang lugar. So a total of 2.5 billion kaagad. But isa lang ang backhoe. So, these are, na-remember ko lang yung stories niyo kanina. So, talagang magic.
Yeah. So there are overpriced projects and there are no projects at all. So meaning na ghost projects.
but there's budget.
But there's budget and there's money that was allocated and released, ha?
Wala mang indirect contempt sa Congress, attorney, no?
Wala. Only when there's an investigation.
Sige, sure. Anyway, yun nga, let's leave the discussion on the House of Representatives dyan, unless may gusto pa kayong comments or anything you wish to discuss sa House of Representatives, Attorney Regal,
Wala, I have none.
Mayor. Okay, eto, just before we close, sobrang puno ng discussion natin ngayon. Nag-1 hour na pala tayo na hindi natin namamalayan.
Wow,
Thank you,
okay.
Attorney Regal. So just before we close, Mayor, there were two topics actually na sa national, naging national, pinag-usapan sa national scene na nakalimutan because nga etong sa impeachment, etc. at sa pagbaha. So gusto lang natin na pag-usapan ulit ngayon, just bring this up to get also the POV of Attorney Regal. Una na nga dyan, Attorney, etong 19% tariff, Mayor, balikan lang natin kasi may insight din si Attorney Regal on that.
Yes, enlighten us on this matter, Attorney.
It's very sad because the first statement of the President of the United States of America, Donald Trump, said nga, ang tariff rate sa Philippines is supposedly 17% only. But if we trace back history, how much is really the tariff rate of the Philippines? 5%. 5% ra gid na siya.
When was this?
That happened after the kinsaning president after World War II. Murag Quirino man siguro. Okay. After kasi we were under American rule. And so there are certain products of the Philippines that has tariff of 5%. Unsa man ning tariff, pasabot mo tax ni siya, it's really not a tax but a tax on imported goods. Nga musud sa Amerika, ilang taxan og 5%. Mao gid nang usual until Donald Trump came. When Donald Trump came, he said, Philippines will have 17% tariff. Out of the blue na po, by whim niya, ingon siya nga, 20% na lang ang Philippines. Indonesia, 36%. Vietnam, 38%. Thailand, give them 25%. Ano yung pag-negotiate? Why? Because Trump wants American products to excel in America. Murag, love Americans first.
America first.
Mao na iyang gusto gin mahitabo. Now, Indonesia negotiated good fiercely with the US government and reduced their tariff from 19 to 20%. Naiuban 19, naiuban 20. Vietnam also reduced it to 19%. Thailand reduced it to 17%. And so forth. Philippines had 20%, pero ang reduction is only 19%. 1% ra gyud atong na-reduce. And was it a victory for our country? No. Mura siya og patronage to the president. Kaya ani man kasi tagaan na ka na mo 1%. But really, what was it all about? Nganong 19% naman nga, we could have negotiated up to 17%. Kaya mo ba yung gisulti first? What will be the effect of this one? US is one of the biggest, or maybe the biggest economy that is transacting with the Philippines. And electronic devices, we have furniture, and we have textile and accessory. We have the BPO industry. And whatever we import to America is taxed at 19%.
So we pay that.
Yes. So for example, the cost of one mug is 1,000 pesos. Ato ning i-import to America, igaabot nga tumubayad tag 190 pesos per mug sa tariff nila. So how will this be passed on to the American market? So this will be sold at 1,190 already. So mas mahal siya. Now, because of that, we might lose jobs here in the Philippines. Kaya mo transfer naman lang ang American market, mahal naman jud kaayo ang Philippines. So it might be very dangerous for us. So I hope that ang naka-nice mo din tariff, it doesn't need to go to Congress. Tariff is a tax. Kaya supposedly, this is the difference. Because taxes are imposed by Congress because Congress has the power of purse. Pero tariff gani, president yun na siya. Mo na power sa presidente nga, I can increase the tariff anytime I want. So, kay spoiled brat pang puning presidente sa US, grabe na po kay siya tariff. Butang lang kong tariff din na, ana. So, mo puning mahitabo karon, it might be very dangerous for American corporations in the Philippines because they have to retrench jobs, ilang pagamyan ilang workforce, kaya di naman sila ka-afford, kaya dako mag-tariff, or some of them might have to be closed. And remember, our BPO industries have the biggest, our American market. We cater to the American market when it comes to call centers. Kaning mga call centers, appeal din siya. Yes, appeal siya. So, in other words, because we are importing our services to the United States of America, appeal siya sa 19%.
Goods and services.
Yes.
Tanong ako, when Marcos went to the US, he doesn't have any real leverage to bargain with the United States ba? So, I think somebody said na pinatawag siya doon. Ipinatawag siya doon. Hindi siya pumunta to negotiate. Pinatawag talaga siya. Because nga, ang geopolitical interest ng United States dito sa Pilipinas is very crucial. So, they just renegotiated what was agreed from the previous administration of the United States of America. So, sabihin na natin, para it would look like we did something to negotiate, let's take off 1% from the 20%.
And that's very... it was former Senator Nikki Cuseteng who said that actually the president was summoned He did not have a state visit, but he was really summoned to the United States of America. For what reason, I don't like to speculate, but it might be something else rather than the tariff. So, mauna siya yung naka-difficult, ana.
True.
But because aside from this, the United States of America is also increasing our EDCA sites here.
For sure, yes.
So that will also threaten our geopolitics in Southeast Asia. Kaya grabe na kaayong presence of the United States of America, which will threaten our relationship with China as well. And China also being our third biggest economic supplier will also be might also be disadvantageous on our part.
Imagine, ang China, mag-economic embargo because of these EDCA sites na dere. Wala na taugma.
Lisod na kaayo.
Wala na taugma, sigurado.
And this is also one of our bargains. Sige, so 1% nga gihatag sa Amerika. Unsay atong gihatag sa Amerika? Free market. Zero tariff. So expect nga mas mahal ang local products mas sa imported products nato. So if you talk about like Pringles nga gikan sa Amerika, mo barato na siya kay di naman ta mo tariff nila, zero naman siya. So that's the whole
Barato ang
thing.
imported products.
Mas barato hinon siya dinhi.
Okay ra. Dili.
And which is bad because mawala na pud ang atong Philippines
Correct. The
first,
local,
diba?
exactly. I'm kidding, it's wrong.
You know, ano yung ginabuhat sa mga imperialista ba o mga kolonista ba? Listen to this, ha? They get the raw materials from you. Kaya kita kanang kuan man ta, rich man ta in resources kaning mga kaning Pilipinas. Then they take it somewhere, they process it and put added value. Then they sell it back to us. While we forget that these things that we kanang yearn for nga makuha nato because out of the American dream, kanang Western culture, the Western thought na ginatanaw nato, we want to imitate that kind of lifestyle. We forget to help our local economy. 'Di ba? Kay it's the same thing. Ang bag nimo diha nga Hermes na unsa ba diha o na Louis Vuitton, na may bag na makahimo ana diri sa Pilipinas.
Coach bags are made in the Philippines.
True. Bottom line,
Mo nang detrimental gid ng impact ana kay we will prefer the imported products from the US which we like really to imitate. It's very it's engraved already in our DNA ba nga manundog ta sa ilaha. Unya, well, di ba? Hindi mo tabangan imong kaugalingon mga tao.
Because basically, see, President Trump really wants corporations from other countries to close and go back to the United States of America and provide employment to Americans. So that's why they're increasing tariff so much. Like for example, Nike is made in Cebu. Coach is made in Pampanga. Our Intel kanang atong mga chips din are made in Baguio. So when we import it back to the United States of America, this is 19%. So ikabaligya ngadto sa Amerika, mas mahal ang kaning mga baligya. Ikabalik na pud nato diri, mas mahal na pud na siya. So expect that Coach products and Nike products nga sige tag pamalit will be more expensive because these are made in the Philippines.
makes sense. Makes sense. Bottom line, Attorney and Mayor, hindi maganda para sa atin yung taripa na
Oh yes.
Na walang taripa.
na walang taripang US.
Because it will make the local products more expensive than the imported ones. And they control the market price ba? Because they have the technology and all of that. Manang lisod na siya. That's why, like, for the people listening to this, dapat kamo, magkuan gud mo, you should help your mga local na mga negosyante.
Especially the small scale. The micro businesses. If we can help them, ay nalang yung hangyo in town.
Kanang t-shirt na mga lang gud, mga simple na mga butang, di na lang mo palit.
Mga SMS,
MSMEs.
Oh,
Tama.
Yeah.
Well, let's see, because I think that's final naman. Wala na yata tayong, unless gigising bukas si BBM at sabihin niya nga, hindi pala pwede.
No,
Ilalaban ko to.
It's not really BBM's call. It's really the President of the United States of America's call. So, if if something happens in the future and President Trump will say, sige, I will reduce it na lang. Oh, sige, then that can happen because it can really go in a whim.
For sure.
So for the next 4 years, while he's president, then we will have to suffer or bear with a tariff.
Trump is trying to enter into an economic war with China that's China is very ahead of already.
Exactly.
Mona siya. He entered the losing game ba? Ano ba? I don't know.
Dako po kay tariff ang China, ha? I-compare with the Philippines, let's just say, China has 38% as tariff and ours is 19%. So, makayimpunta, pero China still go. We don't care about the tariff.
No, because they need China. So it means the consumers there are paying the tariff, not China is paying the tariff, di ba?
Exactly.
Oh.
So the US market are willing to absorb the tariff basta gikan sa China. Okay, it's still cheaper. And an example of this one is BYD cars or electric cars from
vehicles.
China. Di gid pasudlon sa America, but these electric cars from China are willing to absorb the tariff because they will still be cheaper than Tesla.
For sure. Peke man ang Pilipinas. Ipit man ta, attorney.
Lagi?
Two things happened, Attorney. No? So one, because of the 19% tariff, people would lose their jobs. That's just one of the things that will be happening. So second, because of the free market, less na naman ang appreciation for local goods.
Exactly.
Where does this lead us in the next 3 years?
Well, the economy of the Philippines might also dwindle because most of our economy is highly dependent on manufacturing. So if we do not patronize Filipino products because we opt the imported ones, then mugamay na pud ang ato ang employment, ang halin nila, so muubos na pud ang taxes, and mugamay na pud gyud ang atong budget. So that will mangutang na pud ta. Especially kung naa kay Speaker of the House nga si Martin Romualdez, mas dako gyud atong utangon. So mo pud na problema. It will create a chain reaction of so many disadvantageous things.
Correct. But ito na nga ang discussion, Attorney Mayor. Now that the tariff is there, it's been set, and we're gonna bear with that in the next years, we can only hope and pray that the administration of President Marcos will prepare the country, its people, sa consequences na nasabi mo.
Precisely.
And that's what's missing eh. Yun yung hinahanap na. So ano ngayon? Ayan na, may tarifa na. So ano ang gagawin natin ngayon, Mr. President?
Yeah, so the Philippine government should not only prepare, they should also subsidize a lot of Philippine economic drivers. And these are the ones who import products in the United States. So subsidy not only comes from finances, but also in maybe tax cuts, in other forms, para pud makasave in town sila to help them subsidize their tariff.
And who's going to pay for that?
Kita gihapon gina siya.
Magaling naman sila mag-subsidize.
Pero pero at least, Mayor, it goes to the right companies, not to the pockets of our
Yeah, but this is a consequence of what the president's
weak bargaining power.
Ay, sabi ni President Trump, he's a tough negotiator daw.
Tough negotiator, but then weak bargaining power.
Sabi pa niya, big win.
Yeah, tough negotiator. Yes, maybe there was a very big fight with 1%, no?
Kasi 1%, like any 1-year-old, like grade school, 1% is 1%.
And imagine, he went to USA for that 1%.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Anyway, that's a win. Malacanang says it's a win, so that'd be a win.
So whatever they say is not fake news.
Okay. Anyway, all right, moving on. Last point of discussion, Mayor and Attorney, no? Attorney Regal, your POV on ito nakalimutan na din naman to, pinag-usapan actually, itong 20% tax on across the board, no? Include dito sa mga deposits, bank deposits.
Okay.
Attorney Regal, your POV on this one, help us understand kung nakakabuti ba talaga to or nakakasama, and how will this affect us, ng mga pobreng Pilipino?
Okay, any tax will always be good for the government. Why? Because taxes is the lifeblood of the nation. But the thing is, when you say taxes, it must be spent and must go back to the people. Now, why is it that we're complaining now? let's go back to history. In 2017, the train law was passed. When the train law was passed, people were quiet. Why? Because when President Duterte sat down and passed the train law, we saw how the president governed our country. Di tamo reklamo, walang reklamo. Okay, give him what he needs. If we have to increase taxes so that the drug war, so that the programs of President Duterte will be funded properly. Mao gid na atong thinking in 2017. Now, this taxes on savings. Kana lang nga tax ha, reklamo dayon ta. Taxes on social media apps, on Netflix, on your HBO, reklamo dayon ta. Why? Because people are so tired of paying taxes and we do not see where the taxes are being spent on. Now, we go back to your question. What is this 20% tax on time deposits? Now, there is already a 20% tax on savings. Meaning, mga low, short-time deposits, nanay tax 20%. So, for example, you deposit 100,000 pesos in your savings deposit, short-term, meaning anytime imorang i-withdraw. How much is the interest? Around 0.5%. So 100,000, you get 500 pesos nga interest. 20% of that is 100 pesos. That goes to government. That has been existing since 1997. So it's been going on. Now, ever since in 1997, time deposits or long-term deposits have been exempted. Nganong gi-exempt man na siya? Because the government want the Filipinos to save money in the bank. And saving money in the bank, kay time deposit man, pwede nang mautang sa gobyerno imong kwarta. Gamiton sa na imong kwarta ngadto for other economic means. Now, kay makuha man 90 days, di ba, 60 days. Now, that is non-taxable before. But karon ni change og paradigm ang gobyerno. They say, we want you to spend rather than save. Because spending will perk up the economy. It will perk up the economy. So, mas maayong mo save mo, mas inyo na ibutang din sa time deposit. So that's why the time deposits right now are now being taxed with the same tax with the savings account. 20%. Dili 20% of your deposit, 20% of the interest gained from your deposits.
Klaro.
Okay? So, mao na siyang nahitabo karon.
Correct. No, they're saying attorney nga sakto pod yun kaya sulti man sila, they're saying that it's not really anti-poor. It's not anti-poor.
Di siya anti-poor kaya ang mga poor wa man ay savings.
Pod. Sa bangko tama pod man.
Sorry to say. Di man na makasave. Wa maganay. I don't know if the poor people in the Philippines even have bank accounts or mapugos lang na sila because their salaries are placed in ATMs. But really, the poor people do not have long-term deposits. So, it's not anti-poor. It's actually anti-rich. No, kaya sila man ay mag-save. But then again, it still is taxable. So, kung ikaw dato ka, you have to recover from it. So, where do you recover? You recover it from the poor. Ikaw, business, negosyante ka, ay, dako kay kong interest din nida. Ako ning ipasa dito sa presyo sa ako ang
produkto.
Dilata.
Kung kanang gikuan nila, kanang gibuhat nila karon na sa i-tax nila ang ang sa tawag mga time deposit ang interest ato.
Yes, ang
correct?
interest lang.
Yeah, so it will force kaning mga tao nga who have money nga nakabangko nga mo spend. So kung dakay lang theoretically kung i-spend na nila all at once, it will cause inflation.
Exactly.
'Di ba? So dili po na siya maayo ba nga pagasto pugso nimo gasto ang tao kay musaka man ang demand, mo naog ang supply, so mumahal ang mga palitonon. Problema po na siya.
That will cause another problem.
Pero that's only my theory ba.
And how much is our inflation rate this July of 2025? Ubos kayo. No, it went very low. Pero still, compared to last year, 4.7 man last year, the July 0.19. So gamay. Ubos kayo ta. But then again, nagapoy increase. Nagyapoy inflation. So that still is dangerous.
Maybe that's why kay ubos ang inflation mo nang gikuan nila ilang gi pull ang throttle karon. Yeah.
Spend more, spend more. And because our tourism is very low, so that's why we Filipinos are being encouraged to spend more than to save. But really the plan of the Department of Finance is to equalize all interests or all taxes on interest for all aspects in bank. Like for example, tax on savings, tax on long-term, tax on dollar deposits, tanan din 20% nila. On interest rates lang ha.
But I think, ang kailangan talaga maintindihan nito, Attorney, gaya ng sabi mo, at the end of the day, we would be very happy to pay taxes, our taxes,
yes.
if nakikita ang natin, nababalik sa atin, in form of service and infrastructure.
We've seen that already, di ba? The most successful cities in the Philippines have the most religious taxpayers. Why? Because they're happy to pay their taxes. Because we see results. Davao City, di ba ni Second Mayor, no? Because Davao City has a very high rate of taxpayers. Kay tungod makita pud nila nga they're safe in Davao.
Mayang collection dre.
Correct. In Cebu City, maayo pud kaayo collection because they see the development in Cebu City. But how about those who are very, very poor? And poor cities, di sila ganahan gid mo bayad kay nakibalo sila ang mga congresswoman o congressman. Padung ra gid gapon nila ngadto.
Di mo lambo ba? May paglambo ba?
So, mao na siya, it's easy to pay taxes if you see government is giving it back. But if you see that the government is not, then we start complaining.
Now that you mentioned that, baka ni mga uban mo gud mga congressman, congresswoman, ana kumbaga ganig feudal ang ilang pagdala sa ilahang unsa ba mga distrito gani. Nga sila tong landlord unya ka mo di lang mo sa ubos, maintaining the wealth gap, ana ba? Antod karon. So yeah, I don't want to elaborate on that kay kabalo na magid pud ang mga tao nga sa ilang gipuy-an wala gi paglambo because they can compare it pag muadto sila sa mga other cities na kanang klaro nga nilambo. But pasabot ang distribution of wealth maayo.
Yun nga, ang nababasa nga natin na komento, ito na nga utang tayo ng utang, nagbenta tayo ng gold, kinuha natin ng budget ng PhilHealth, nag-tax na naman tayo.
Where did all the money go?
Exactly.
Ayuda.
So much money, but didn't
Ayuda,
translate.
flood control, ana.
Anyway, thank you very much, Attorney Regal. Actually, that's the last topic, Mayor, for today's episode na sobrang puno talaga. Oo, thank you very much. Palakpakan natin, Attorney Regal Oliva. Attorney, maraming salamat again for your time, no, and for joining us again sa Basta Dabawenyo, and for always saying yes to our invitation. Daghan kayong salamat.
Always a pleasure to be here, especially to be with Mayor Baste Duterte and to be with you, Harv. It's always nice to be back in Davao and to talk about very crucial things that affect our city and our country. So happy Kadayawan Festival.
Thank you, Attorney.
Thank you.
So, Attorney, baka lang may gusto ka pang sabihin sa mga followers mo din, no? For those following you on your social media account, and to the rest of our followers also.
To all my followers, please also follow Basta Dabawenyo program. I hope that we can learn a lot of things here because we speak the truth, only the truth in this program.
Thank you, Attorney Regal. And Mayor, we have some greetings, Mayor, na gikan sa imo for our followers.
Happy birthday, Tata Soriano. Happy 52nd founding anniversary to Alpha Kappa Rho, Beta Sigma Chapter Santo Tomas, Davao del Norte. Tama, di ay. Anniversary na to August 8. Long live mga igsoon ako. Happy birthday sa asawa sa akong higala nga si Catherine de la Fuente of Cebu. Happy birthday John Michael Villegas of Tagum. Happy birthday to Enrica Maria Corazon Almendras Edralin of Canada. God bless you. Taasa po ni Mugano eh. Happy birthday Rex Villarin, Duterte supporter from Barangay Mintal. Advance happy birthday to Edwin Maglangit of Barangay Santo Niño. Belated happy birthday to Sean Isaac Canape. Congrats to all the finishers and runners of Adobo Urban Trail Run by Team Davao Runners. Shout out to Tita Amor Mascarinas. Shout out to Roy Moreno of Bisayang Balita. Mabuhay ka. Mabuhay ug madayaw to the staff and crew of Brew It Halal Cafe in Toril. Happy viewing to Daniel Joy Simbahon watching from KSA Simbahon family. And shout out to Evangeline Legarta. Stay safe and pretty always.
Mayor, just before we end, your message, Mayor, to our fellow Dabawenyos and to our fellow Filipinos.
May gabi sa inyong tanan. First of all, I would like to thank the brilliant attorney Regal Oliva for gracing our episode tonight. Salamat kay sa atong mga co-host sa katuang production team. And happy kadayawan sa mga Dabawenyo. Unta enjoy mo. So timan ilang ninyo ang culture of security, importante gyud kayo na. So tanan na nagasubaybay diri lahat ng mga nanonood ng Basta Dabawenyo. Just turn to us if you want to hear vital information on what's happening on current events that in our country. So maraming salamat sa pagpapanood nyo dito sa ating palabas. Thank you very much. Mabuhay kayong lahat and salamat sa walang tigil na suporta nyo sa tatay ko. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Personal greetings.
Ako ang mama, ako ang papa, ako igsoon, mga igsoon ako, si Kitty pod, niya akong mga anak, o niya, di po dunta, ako kalimtan yun si ang Baker Medical Aesthetics, was in charge of NAD na ako, sa supplements na ako. Thank you for taking care of my health.
Thank you, Mayor. Again, thank you very much, Attorney Regal Oliva. Hanna, your greetings.
Salamat sa atong mga viewers, no? So, ang greetings lang ginako is happy kadayawan to everyone. And karong kadayawan, daghan kay tag mga events sa city. So, maximize, laag-laag, and of course, katong giingon po ni Mayor, culture of security always. Happy kadayawan, Dabawenyos.
Pag may nakita, dapat magsalita. Pilipinas, maraming salamat po muli sa inyong pagsubaybay at pagtutok sa aming programa. Lalong-lalo na, Mayor, sa ating mga kababayang OFWs. Maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat at naway nasa mabuti kayong kalagayan.
Ako si Hanna Piccio, ang disiplinadong Dabawenyo mahadlukon sa Ginoo. Ang disiplinadong Dabawenyo mo respeto sa balaod ug sa isig katao.
Mahigugmaon, matinud-anon ug maisog. Basta Dabawenyo.